One train. Let's go. Lines in the sand, welcome to the front row. Real life hitting, everybody wanna know. When the spin get thick, who cuts through the chain? AK, David Drew stepping into the frame. Late nights, Dukes in the dirt. From the grind to the house, to the scarf, to the grease stained shirts. Parents, pegrees fight for what's true. From the clinic to the warehouse, to your living room. Headlines screaming, but we ain't scared. Faith in our bones, yeah, we came prepared. Culture war is unchanged. Where the real ones meet the rage. Where the truth cuts through the noise. Every voice on the stage. Culture war is unchanged. From the heartland to your brain. If you're tired of the script, we're here to break the chain.
What is going on, everybody? We are Culture Warriors Unchained. We are back, the three of us, and we are ready for the summer. We're ready for midterms. They're going to be knocking on our door in not too long. And yeah, let's get talking about some awesome topics, some fun ones, some not so fun ones. And we have a guy that's a trillionaire. So no longer the millionaires and the billionaires. We got to complain supposedly about the trillionaires, which I don't mind. I mean, that's fine. That'd be cool. Be a trillionaire. But yeah, our first topic, Take Care of America Veterans Act. We'll dive into this. It has some stuff to do with the Major Richard Starr Act, which I know a little bit about, am affected directly from that. So I know that there's some things going on there. And what's going on with US and Iran? So supposedly, allegedly a peace deal. We'll see. You never know what the other countries, our valued partners, our longtime allies are doing as well. So it's another wild time. And like I mentioned, Elon Musk with SpaceX IPO, initial public offering, becoming a trillionaire. I don't think it has a lot to do with anything else other than just better things for America, but we'll talk about that if we get to it. Honorable mentions: UFC Freedom 250, America's 250th birthday. You never looked so good on the White House lawn. We had fights and all kinds of stuff, and fighters saying a little bit of wild things, which it's fine. Let's laugh about it. Paramount, and back in my area, Paramount Warner Brothers merger, stuff I know a little bit about when it comes to culture. We'll see what that has to do with that. Artemis 3 crew has been announced, and Minnesota Mao documentary. So we're going to get in those topics. Before we do, hit the like button, subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel and have some discussions in the chat. We want to hear from you. Make your questions in the form of a question, and then we can answer it during the show. Otherwise, yeah, let us know where we can improve and what we're absolutely crushing it at. We are on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and then later on iTunes, Apple, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts and shows on. So I am Drew Outstanding, and I'm your resident pop culture veteran connoisseur when it comes to live events, and now been traveling internationally. So this was my first travel non-deployment orders. Just got back from Japan about a week or so ago, and I got a lot to talk about that. Maybe we'll get to that in the second hour. And also in the second hour, we'll have a guest, an absolutely amazing guy. Has to do with the Duty to Disobey film that I'm also in, and we can get into that. But enough about me. David, who are you? What do you do? Welcome back.
Good evening, folks. I am the Peruvian gentleman, David Webster, and I'm the resident legal immigrant, not born here, unlike my co-hosts who got to start day one in the best country on earth that's turning 250 soon. Like my friend Drew over there, a military veteran as well, and a big pop culture nerd. I think we've had several Marvel debates in the background that I've enjoyed. And yeah, I'm just excited to talk about the things that are going on in the world. This Veterans Act and kind of the good and the bad that's going on with it. That stuff is near and dear to my heart, as it is to Drew, I'm sure. And I'm just excited. Let's get into this.
My name is AK Kamara. I am the third leg of this podcast stool. And my job is to actually show that you can be an elected Republican Party official, which I am, and not just be like a complete, loser. You can be just like a normal dude that does normal things, but is really passionate about his country and specifically really passionate about the Republican Party. And I also create content. So I'm out there making videos, posting all over social media. Make sure that you guys hit the like button. Make sure that you guys hit the share button. Sharing is the most important thing you can do. And then also, we love to interact. So drop your comments. We're going to read them live while we're on the air. And no matter what, we want to grow this podcast. So we need your interaction if you like what we do. Without further ado, let me kick it back over to you, Mr. Drew. What's our first story? What are we talking about?
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks, AK. This is awesome. Let's get into it. Take care of American Veterans Act. So let's bring up that article and let's dive into it. I do like the idea that we are like Trump administration first one, and then now jumping into the second one with a little 4-year break, of course. Now we're getting into the real kind of issues that really hit the voters, hit the veterans, myself and David, that have been going about this in the last 20 years and looking to get, taken care of in the right way, or earning or receiving the things that we earned and we went off of this stuff. So, David, tell us about what's going on here.
Yeah, so this is via Newsweek. A couple of different places have covered this, but the VA benefits cut warnings issued by the largest veterans groups. They're quoting that it's going to be a serious problem. And so this is actually from the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, called the proposed changes under the Take Care of America's Veterans Act a broad legislative package that includes the bipartisan Major Richard Starr Act as a serious problem for the future of disability compensation. Now, I'm a big fan of pretty much everything that's in the Richard Starr Act. It's the additional things that have been thrown in here that people are having issues with. Let me see if I can go down to
For context.
So they're talking about.
Yeah, I was just gonna say a little bit with the Richard Starr Act. There's kind of a couple ways you can go about this. So, like myself, I can speak for myself. Basically, I was retired from the military shorter than I wanted to. So, being medically retired from the Army, I didn't get to have the full career that I wanted to. And so I do have disability when it comes to the VA based on my experience and the things that I went through and been reported on and all that kind of stuff. But I have to choose, do I want to get the VA one or my military one? And so it's kind of a detriment. You shouldn't have to choose one or the other. They're completely different things, completely different pots of money. But that's kind of where it's at. Whereas you should be able to have both and not have to choose one or the other. That's part of it.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I think a lot of vets and a lot of veterans organizations are big proponents of that portion of this bill. The problem with a lot of these bills, and AK maybe read some more of this, is that they'll bundle a bunch of extra crap in there that's not good for anybody, or they'll slip some stuff under the wire. But so what they're talking about here is to pay for those benefits, Congress would codify previously proposed VA disability rating cuts for tinnitus and sleep apnea. And this is huge, and I'll explain it in a minute. The organization added saying that these changes could reduce the disability compensation payments by approximately $57 billion over 10 years and affect up to 1.5 million veterans. Now, I actually have here the bill. I went onto the congressional site to pull up this information. Let me see. Here it is. And so what everybody's talking about is Section 108 right here. that says reforms relating to Department of Veterans Affairs disability rate. I won't read all of this. I'm just going to grab some of the bullet points because, I think if you have vets in your family or a veteran yourself, you should definitely go and look into this and talk to your representatives. But they talk about a grade of disability of 0% shall be assigned to sleep apnea syndrome when the syndrome is asymptomatic with or without treatment. What that basically means is if you have sleep apnea and you have a sleep apnea machine and you can sleep through the night, they're going to rate you at a 0 percentile for disability for that. And then a grade of 10% shall be assigned if sleep apnea syndrome with treatment yields incomplete relief. And a grade of disability of 50% shall be assigned to sleep apnea syndrome only if the treatment is either ineffective or the veteran is unable to use the prescribed treatment due to comorbidity conditions and there is no end organ damage. So part of the issue I see with that, and I'll go into the second part about tinnitus, is if you're somebody who relies on sleep apnea machines and all of the components that come with that, those are expensive. And if they're giving you a 0 percentile in your disability, there are still copays at the VA for certain things if they're not service related, unless you're already 100% disabled, which this would keep you from being 100% disabled if sleep apnea is your biggest issue. In addition to that, down here under B, it says ratings for tinnitus. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs shall revise the schedule for rating disabilities adopted and applied. Tinnitus may not be assigned as a separate compensatable disability rating. So previously, anybody with tinnitus, it's a 10% disability rating on its own, separate from any of the other issues that you're dealing with. And just a little David lore for the group. When I got out of the Army and I went to the VA for my appointments, they denied all of my disability claims. I was literally medically non-deployable. Like my unit went to Afghanistan and I didn't get to go with them and go play in the sand. And the VA said, well, there's nothing wrong with you. The only thing they gave me was 10% for tinnitus because they couldn't prove that I didn't have it. Because if you tell people you have hearing loss and ringing in your ears, I mean, the most they can do is give you a hearing test, and then they have to be like, well, he probably has that, and we can't prove he doesn't. But they basically denied everything else, and I spent about a decade fighting to get even. At one point, I was at 30% and then 70%, and now I'm at 100% disability. But when I was in my 20s struggling, like when I was a homeless vet, that $3,000 a month of disability would have been great. But that $200 that I got for my tinnitus, like that fed me. You know what I mean? So I see this as a net negative, attaching this to the Richard Starr bill. But I want you guys to kind of weigh in on your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing. They're changing the way things go, and I'm sure they measure how many people are coming in for certain things, and technology changes, and if things can be mitigated. From what I heard, and it opens up more doors, but it also closes others. Keep in mind, it's grandfathered in if you've already been assigned that on a certain status. So it's going to be complicated. I think they're trying to find the money and move things around, and all the actuaries and all the officers are trying to figure that stuff out. It's just it's going to be wild. I believe it's going to open more doors, and it's going to be a net positive, but it's going to go through a bunch of revisions. AK, what do you think on the policy side? And before that, do you want to jump into a couple chats?
Yeah, no, we can jump in a couple of chats. So first shout out to Kathleen Quist. She's been road dog, been watching us for a while. Said, hey, very, very short and sweet. David and I actually got to, I had already met her a ton of times before. I've known her for a while, but David got to meet her when we were at the state convention. So that was pretty dope. And then also Jason Hackler
shout
says,
out Kathleen.
Jason Hackler also says, hey. So we got two heys. Hey. Love it. And like I said,
that's a sideshow. That's Krusty. That's it.
Krusty.
Simpsons.
Hey, that's the start of an R&B song in the 90s. What are you talking about?
That too. Yeah, it's all about perspective.
People can make money off anything.
I know, you ain't wrong.
Yeah.
You ain't wrong.
Guys, we appreciate your comments, and weigh in as we're talking about this. Do you have vets in your family? Are you aware of these changes? Are you aware of the good and the bad that's coming with this potential bill? While AK is breaking it down for us on the policy side, throw us your comments and what you think.
So, obviously, whenever we start having this conversation about veterans, there's kind of these two trains of thought. I understand that money is not infinite. Clearly, as a free market capitalist, I understand that. But just to kind of break down the nitty gritty, the idea is that the Major Richard Starr Act, which would permit certain combat injured veterans to concurrently receive full retirement pay and disability compensation, according to the Starr Act Alliance, the Major Richard Starr Act would benefit roughly 54,000 combat injured veterans who were medically retired before reaching 20 years of service, allowing them an average of $1,200 or more. The problem to offset the funding, right, because money is finite, is that in order to fund this expansion, which again, the benefits of helping those that were medically retired, such as I believe Drew, right?
Yep, I just said that. Yeah,
That the offset of that is that money doesn't come out of anywhere, out of thin air. And so in order to fund the expansion, lawmakers are proposing revising rating criteria for conditions like sleep apnea and tinnitus, whereby reducing future expenditures. And according to some of the analysis, removing or scaling back compensation for conditions such as sleep apnea and tinnitus would generate more than $50 billion in savings over the next decade, but that saving comes directly at the expense of veterans. So, I mean, obviously, David, Drew, you guys did a great job breaking this down. I'm just here to explain that when you start talking about these benefits and expanding benefits, we always come under this kind of like, oh, well, now we have to be fiscally responsible. I'm not saying we shouldn't be fiscally responsible. What I will say, and I've said on the show before, to me, the last thing ever that I really care about cutting in order to make things financially stable, like the very, very last thing, like if we've cut all these other things and the last thing is veterans or first responders, cut everything else, like legitimately. Because if you are a veteran, you are a first responder, you have answered the call of service to this nation to serve something bigger than yourself, then listen, like you should be the last people to be cut. And when we're talking about $50 billion in savings over the course of a decade, let's just be super, super frank. How many billions of dollars have been proven to have gone to people that come to this country that have never served a day in their life? But yet, this is what we're worrying about offsetting the cost of. And I get that there's a difference of like how money flows to different departments. But to me, it's like, what are we really doing here, guys? Like, let's just fund it in addition and find other places to cut.
Yeah, thanks for saying that.
Jumped out at me.
I appreciate that. I'm biased. David's biased, obviously.
Yeah.
AK, you have your opinions, and because we hear all about all this stuff, and well, for one, we had to go to war in one way or another for since 2003, whatever you want to say it, in whatever war that's still going on. We have troops that are in Kuwait. One Minnesota one, I don't want to mess up her name. She killed and got KIA in Kuwait, which is a like neutral ally country, from Iran and whoever else. And it's like these things do happen. And then I know other people, other Minnesotan currently serving that were impacted by this. So we go out there, we get jacked up, and then all we're doing is looking forward to get taken care of again. And it's like, at first, when I was younger, it's just like, oh, whatever, it's just my job or it's my duty. I have to do it. And then you hear people say, well, you signed up for that. You should get whatever is given to you. And you should be lucky that you were able to, like, it's like, no. We do all this stuff and there's a cost. We should be provided for services rendered. That's what I've heard over and over again. So it makes sense. And like you said, AK, we will spend money on anything, on all this stuff. You can go to any government building or program or whatever and see the waste, fraud, and abuse happen in one way or another. It really makes sense. Like, I'm big on tax, making sense of it, but to have defense of our own country, and then even further the people of that. We're so different from any other country, and we'll get into the 250, but we got to take care of our own. Otherwise, we won't have an army, we won't have a military, a defense, and then we're not providing that protection to many other countries that rely on us to basically keep the peace between each other. David?
And my biggest pushback on the money topic is I was scrolling through even while you were talking because I had some things that had jumped out at me, but I'm scrolling through all this other stuff that the 119th Congress is currently discussing, and in there they have things for naturalizing people who are illegal aliens that maybe haven't committed crimes and have paid taxes. They have things in there for expanding the H-1B program, right? And they have things in there that I could easily see, the illegal population that we have here taking advantage of and stealing, money from us, when they find out that those new things are potentially going to become laws. And I think my issue with the conversation about, well, the money's got to come from somewhere. It does, and I think we need to massively cut down the H-1B program, because that's just legislated slave labor. In this country, we're getting cheap labor from the third world, and then with the illegals question, I mean, they should be getting not a dime from us.
Right.
Like, you snuck in, you broke in. That we shouldn't be doling out houses, cars. Like, there are literally, like, you drive around in Minneapolis, you'll see all the homeless vets with their cardboard signs. Now, are they all homeless vets, or is some of them grifting? Probably, but like, the fact that you can see a homeless vet on the side of the street, and then you can also see, a family of people who very clearly can't read the road signs, and they're swerving all over the place in a brand new Hyundai Sonata or whatever. Like, that's where the money, that like, if you're trying to save money, save it from there, not from here. I mean, that's
And
just
there's
that's just how I
debts,
look at it.
there's
Like Drew was
deficits
saying,
and
you've
debts,
got to.
and yeah,
Yeah, and I
there's
just,
ways to pay for it.
I just wanted to, I know that you probably remembered after the fact, Drew, but Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore, who is the Minnesota native who was Army reservist, who was killed in Kuwait, just to again just make sure that we honor her name and her sacrifice to this country. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of put a final
100%,
pin in this
amen.
topic, and we can move on to the next topic. It's just, again, when we have these conversations, I just think that the ability to recognize and understand those that just common sense to take care of, much like the first responders after 9/11 that had to fight for 20 some years to finally be able to get compensation for all of the damage that was done to their body. So many of them died, right? And obviously John Stewart was pushing that super, super hard. And it's just like all of these things that we waste money on, all of these things. And it's like you have to fight like tooth and nail for some of these just things where, again, quality of life. I mean, if you didn't serve and you didn't have artillery going off around you all the time, you probably wouldn't have tinnitus, right? And it's just like that's just the reality. And when it comes to sleep apnea, there's other environmental factors that have a huge impact on that. But it's just like, at the end of the day, it's the last thing in a decent society that we should ever worry about cutting, because these are the people that carry out the mission of protecting the United States and our interests and its people. And I think it's pretty absurd.
One
Yeah,
final
absolutely.
clarification: it's two different types of things. So one, you do your duty and you earn it, and you're supposed to get that retirement in a way, but it's cut short. So yeah, and you go through. I went through panels and boards, and they nitpicked everything, and they said that I'm not able to do it because of the condition I'm in. So I get that retirement based on how I served and what I was supposed to do. And then on the other side is that disability from injuries, illnesses that were caught. So it's two different things. They right now it's combined as one in order to save money, or however it was written. But yeah, this is going to be an ongoing thing. I've been following. I follow these nonprofits, these organizations, the VFW. It'll keep going until it goes somewhere. But yeah, it should be bipartisan, but somehow it turns into no partisan lately because of other things.
Yep. I would say my only call to action for everybody watching with this is, if you're a veteran yourself, or you have vets in your family, and you take the time to maybe look into what's going on with this bill, call your representatives and let them know that, like, you oppose Section 108. If you oppose Section 108, like, you don't have to we don't have to sit by and just let this stuff happen, but you do have to make your voices heard. You have to reach out to the representatives that are going to be voting on this thing and say, hey,
Yep.
this is what I don't like. This is what I do like. And if we get enough of that pressure going, that's how you effectuate change. Like, you
Yeah,
have to
that's a good point.
exercise
And
the
then
will of
like
the
think of the
people,
bigger
you know?
picture. You want to cut down on the YouTube control alt deleting, veterans eliminating themselves, that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
this is one way I got taken care of. I'm in, in a better spot, and I continue to be, based on being taken care of by the VA, by devices that I have on my legs and equipment. So yeah, we could talk about this for a long time, but let's get talking about, I'd say, a better topic: US and
Agreed.
Iran when it comes to the peace deal. Where are we at? Are we at war with Iran? Are we at peace with them? What does Israel have to do with it? As we bring up that article, yeah, I kind of saw the writing on the wall, as be like, oh, it's going to only be 5 weeks or this or that, and then we every couple of days or another week happens, and there's bombings here or there. It's to give my overall thing. It's war. Countries are always at war. It's just a little bit more peaceful and less fiery every once in a while when we're focused on something else, when our squirrel eyes are focused on some other shiny object. But let's really break down the details and kind of see where we're currently at. What does it have to say, David?
You go for it, David.
So, according to President Donald J. Trump's X account, it says the deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran is now complete. Congratulations to all. I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and simultaneously herewithin authorize the immediate removal of the United States naval blockade. Ships of the world, start your engines. Let the oil flow. President Donald J. Trump. I have a tie with that name on the back of it. He used to have a clothing line, and
He did.
the ties
He
were
did.
fire.
And a mattress company too. Fun fact: my sister had a mattress, and then later on realized that, oh, this is Trump's mattress. It says it on the tag. She
He
didn't
needs
know
to
it until
reopen
she
that
was gonna
company.
get rid of
I
it.
need a new. I'm looking at mattresses. He needs to reopen that company immediately.
She was not a fan, but love the mattress.
Yeah, no, great products by President Trump. I'll just kind of continue on with the Fox News story. So President Trump announced on Sunday that the United States and Iran have officially reached a peace agreement marking major diplomatic breakthroughs that would reopen the Strait of Hormuz and end a U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports. The deal with the Islamic Republic is now complete, President Trump wrote on Truth Social. And Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, whose country has served as a mediator, shout out to Pakistan in this negotiation, was the first to announce the peace deal, saying that a signing ceremony is scheduled to actually take place this Friday in Switzerland. And President Trump announced earlier today that Vice President J.D. Vance was going to be there along with Marco Rubio and the rest of the team, and saying that with the opening of the strait upon signing of the deal on Friday, the purpose of mine removal, oil will flow on both ends again for the region and the world. So, the biggest contention, and then I'll kind of back to, back away and get you guys' thoughts on it, is like, we go and we do the thing, right? And then after we do the thing of taking out Iran's nuclear capabilities, we then have a whole bunch of strikes. I think so far from the last measurement, we had like 2,000 strikes. Okay. Like, we were busting up Iran. And so the big contention now is, well, what's in the deal? And, there's certain aspects that I think the White House is being hush hush on. There's other aspects that were kind of, if you want to say, confirmed by Trey Yangst from Fox News. So I'm just going to play this little video here of what he had to say, maybe, because I don't know if my audio's turned on. Actually, I don't have the audio turned on this one. But basically, the question is, what's in the deal? Now, with all that, it's going to lay out. We're going to find out what's exactly in the deal. From a high level, what I've heard is that we are not going to allow them to keep their centrifuges that allowed them to continually enrich uranium, so it can eventually get up to weapons grade, like 90% enrichment. We're not going to allow them to do that, which is completely different than the GCPOA that Obama signed. And then there's a bunch of other kind of carrots that are along the way to be able to get certain sanctions lifted as long as they continue to allow us to be there. And also basically taking the nuclear dust from Operation Midnight Hammer when we just dropped all of our
I got a video.
all of our
We can.
awesome, sweet, yeah.
Very happy to say very signed, the deal's all signed. And the strait is already partially opened. As you know, they're doing a little hunting for a couple of mines that they've already found. But it's essentially ships are starting to go out now. On Friday, it'll be completely opened. We got along very well with Iran. It's a different set of leaders. As you know, the first set is gone, the second set is gone, and we found the third set to be very smart, strong, very smart, but we ended up making a deal. I felt badly that we had to go back on the attack for 2 nights, and I thought a third, but we made it before that happened. But I think a lot of great things are going to happen in the Middle East right now, and very importantly, the oil is plummeting down, and the stock market is shooting up like a rocket today, like record kind of numbers. And the oil has taken its biggest plunge, and we're into the low numbers, not quite back yet, Kevin, to the extent, but we're getting close to the numbers we were before it all started. And the main thing is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. They fully agreed to that with strong policing powers, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, which is what it was all about, because they probably would have used it if they had it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just kind of curious your guys' thoughts. Go with you first, David. What are your thoughts on this peace deal that should be signed by Friday in Switzerland? What are your initial thoughts?
Listen, listen. I learned this in the Army. So I'm going to give you a little story, and this will explain my answer. We were supposed to come home for Christmas, my first deployment, and we're taking off from Shannon, Ireland, to get back to the U.S. And the officers and the higher enlisted NCOs come down the aisles and take everybody's rifles that are underneath the seat away from us, and then they let us know over the loudspeaker that they're turning us around, that we got to go back we're getting extended for a couple of months, so we're all going to miss Christmas. I don't believe it till it's in front of me happening, because we used to be like, we're going home this time, and none of us believed it, and then we're in the air. We're hours from home, and they turned us around and sent us right back. Back and forth, and like you said, different and various military apparatus. Until the deal's signed, and even I don't know how much I would trust, just based on the history of everything in the region. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic, I think is the best way I could describe it. With
I want to see the results
in the last few months, with the amount of times that we've deal or that the strait is open.
So I want to see the results. And one thing he said, that Strait of Hormuz is open. So okay, that's something. That's an actionable item result that we've had. Now let's see how long it can stay open. And now they're looking for things. But I can say that it has had a positive impact on the stock market, on the oil, and that makes a lot of sense. Many of us, you have or should have a 401k or a TSP or a IRA. Not financial advice, but look into your future. And you could tell the way this was going in the wars in the last month or so, it's had an impact up and down. And me, not financial advice, I've been DCA, dollar cost averaging, and I continually put in. And when it's red, I put more in. And then and now it's up farther than it was when we started this war, conflict, whatever it is. But that's how wars end, when we have trade, when we have it doesn't just be like, okay, now we're all good, forget all that religion stuff, forget all the bombings and the killings and stuff like that. It usually comes down to trade. How can each country benefit? and what I learned in one of my negotiating classes, it was you find a deal that both parties do not really like. If you can tolerate if both parties can tolerate something, then that's a good deal for everybody. You're never going to get it where one side completely wins, because honestly, that's probably only going to last for about 5 minutes, and then you're going to have another kind of issue. So you just kind of have to deal with the least amount of damage, and that's what it sounds like. I'm with you, David. Let's trust but verify, but we got to look out for what's good for America and thus individual Americans.
Yeah. So I mean, I have a different angle.
was really
and I
well
get that
said,
I'm biased, right? Yeah, but here's
I'm my
my
moment.
here's my bias angle. Essentially, I've believed from the very beginning, when President Trump launched Operation Midnight Hammer, that there was a plan, and I actually trusted that President Trump had not been corrupted to being tricked into a forever war. So for me, I've constantly been saying, guys, trust President Trump. He's clearly not a warmonger, but we have certain lines that we have to cross. And you can have a conversation about how much intel we had about what Iran's nuclear capabilities were like, along with, intel that came from Israel and Mossad, and how truly actionable it was. Because, if you believe things that Marco Rubio said way back after Midnight Hammer happened, is that like basically Israel was going to jump anyways. So we might as well have taken the opportunity. And I said, it's going to work out, right? Like ultimately, this is not going to be a forever war. Obviously, things can be weird, and opportunities and information can change. But along the entire way, you've seen kind of like this push and pull of neocons and anti-war folks, for lack of a better way of explaining. And the neocon people kept on trying to like, the things that they liked about going after Iran and potentially like, doing forever wars, because for whatever reason, neocons love that stuff. They would cheerlead and be happy every time there was an action that was like necessarily putting us into greater long-term conflict. And then every time there was, a glimmer or a hint that somehow this was a failure and that Trump was going to have to go back with his tail between his legs, the anti-war and more specifically the anti-Israel people are like, aha, see, told you, like, Trump is just Bibi Netanyahu's dog or puppet or whatever. So you would have both of these sides that would try and weaponize whatever was happening for their ultimate goal and to like support their position. Along the whole time, though, President Trump was continually hitting on both sides, saying like, listen, we're not here to fight Israel's war for Israel. We're not here forever wars. We're here for America's long-term strategic interests. And that's what we're here for. And so the entire time I've just continued to say, trust President Trump to be the man that we have voted for and that we know that he is. That's all I've said. I'm not saying blindly or whatever. And I think that this agreement shows that reports are Israel's not super happy. Mark Levin and a lot of the folks that are like hardcore neocons that, are just, they want to just wipe Iran off the face of the, face of the planet.
Well, that's the thing.
They're not happy about it.
With different priorities.
Uh-huh.
And even if you're on the same side or ally or whatever it is, I mean, AK, me and you are going to have different priorities, or the three of us are going to have different priorities about what we eat. For one, what restaurant we go to, and then even on the restaurant, different things on the menu. Yet we're all, on the same side, or we're sitting at the same table, and people don't always announce it. But so, yeah, when you have an ally, but you're working together, it's never going to go well. To go back to what David said about the trip, I didn't know about that. I didn't know you got all the way to Shannon, Ireland. Even when we were coming up on 12 months in Iraq in 2005, we're like, yep, month away, 3 weeks away. And some of the older guys that were in the Gulf War, the 90s Gulf War, they're like, don't count it until you're at home, all that kind of stuff. So and it could be that your commander wanted to get you home, but then other things kind of came up. And then, so yeah, I'm with you, AK, 100%. Where you said that, we know Trump as much as we do to say that he doesn't want the forever wars. He's always said that he's like, how about we stop, people stop dying? I always like that, I'm paraphrasing that quote, but he's like, can we just knock it off? Let's, do what we need to not, and he's repeated that over again, was the not get a nuclear weapon. And I trust that he knows more than we do. I mean, I know enough to think that, Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon. And if they did, what would happen? And I like how he said on that video, we knocked out that first round of leadership, and then they came with the second round and we knocked them out. And the third one hopefully is smarter, and that's how it should be. I got JD Advanced, actually JD Vance, on here. And so he's actually breaking it down in a way that I can understand. I haven't seen the whole 1 minute clip, but when he talks about actual money, and because going back to the topic that we talked about previously with how to pay for, stuff back home, what was it? AK, the Obama administration sent over $1 trillion in dollars. Like it was,
they like billions and billions, like over $100 billion, pallets of cash in the GCPOA. So
that's where you can get money for, home, domestic, veterans, defense, that kind of stuff.
I was going to say, I mean, that could have funded some veteran disability right there.
And I keep on saying G, I meant JCPOA.
Talk to us,
You're
JD.
literally the only person that noticed. We didn't notice.
Nope.
I'm looking at it and I keep on saying G instead of J.
Come on. I know you don't do a lot of theater, AK, but the first rule of theater is if you make a mistake singing a song or like reading your lines, you don't admit it because the audience probably doesn't know. They're just going to think it's a variation of the story that's being told differently.
That's fair.
All right. Well, it was working. Now it's not.
All right. I'm gonna.
I was trying to buy you time, Drew.
No, I'm gonna jump in and just play this clip from Che Yanks that I was trying to play before. I think he gives a pretty good breakdown. Now, this is based off of what senior admin officials were saying. It's not necessarily.
Well, we already.
What is it working now? I can drop off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I'm back.
All right,
JD, talk to us.
Signed the deal digitally yesterday, and there's been no money released, and that won't change, George. Again, this is a performance-based thing. If we see the Iranians making, for example, taking action to eliminate their stockpile of enriched material, then yes, sanctions relief will follow. If we see the Iranians taking action to allow the verification regime that we need to see to know that they're not going to build a nuclear weapon, yes, sanctions relief will follow. So this is really about walking down a pathway here where the Iranians will be welcomed into the world economy if they do the right thing. And George, we have to remember, their economy is fundamentally destroyed. Their nuclear program is fundamentally destroyed. If they don't do the right things, if they don't allow the verification regime, they're never going to have the money to rebuild their nuclear program to begin with. So this is fundamentally a win-win for the American people. What the president has said is he wants it to be a win for the Iranian people as well, but that requires some real trust building and some real positive conduct from the Iranian political system. We're going to see if that happens. If it does, they're absolutely going to find the president of the United States and the entire team a willing partner to make their country more prosperous.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I'm not some super intelligent, some master thing, but like performance-based, you do something good, we're going to release sanctions. Just like if you're training a kid or a dog or whatever like that, you can't give them everything and you can't be completely strict as well. Like it's got to go back and forth. I don't know. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I'll just play this just to again give a little bit more context.
Yep. And then after
whatever deal the president is able to sign, that it wouldn't be much different than his deal, the JCPOA. Can you tell us how this deal is different and how it is better?
So broadly speaking, the JCPOA deal negotiated under President Obama allowed Iran a path toward a nuclear program. Because when we talk about enriched uranium, and this is really important when we look at the difference in these deals here, and I don't want to give you too much of a lesson on enrichment, but it's actually quite important when we're talking about the Obama deal versus the deal that was just signed right now. During the Obama administration, it allowed Iran to continue enriching uranium. And the way that uranium is enriched, the uranium ore is actually extracted from the ground, and then through a chemical process, it turns into yellow cake. And then another chemical process, it turns into hexafluoride gas. And they spin that gas very rapidly in advanced centrifuges. And ultimately, the heavier particles go to the outside and the lighter ones stay in the middle. And this is repeated over and over again until you get to a higher purity of enriched uranium. And to take enriched uranium from, let's say, 5 to 10% to 20%, ultimately to 60%, and eventually 90%, which is weapons-grade material, can be a matter of weeks, if not days. And so allowing the Iranians to keep advanced centrifuges and then enrich uranium, eventually closer to weapons-grade material, set them on a path toward a weapon, because that is a process that is needed to create a nuclear weapon, even if they weren't doing it at that moment. This agreement does not allow the Iranians, according to this senior administration official, to keep any of their enriched material. And that means they're not going to be able to repeat that process in advanced centrifuges, and then once U.S. forces leave the region, increase the purity of the enriched uranium again toward a nuclear weapon.
So again, like ultimately, right, I think that it's seeming like it's going to be a good deal. The people that are haters because they don't, want to see war end, and they truly just want Iran to just to get, glassed by the United States. I understand the sentiment. I get it. I do. If that's like your position, I just think that the ramifications of doing something like that, for what purpose when, like we're not right there in the region. So I think that President Trump has always had the position that we will never allow Iran to have a nuke, because then our interests are truly at risk, because Iran was ran by a bunch of psychopaths and terrorists. And I think people just need to realize, so you're going to see all types of stuff. Even earlier today, I was seeing, basically Democrats and neocons be like, President Trump is guaranteeing to give Iran $300 billion. And JD Vance actually broke down and is like, no. We're going to allow them to make their own money. And that could equal up to $300 billion if they do all the things that they're supposed to do when we release those sanctions. It's not that we're going to give them $300 billion. We're just going to allow them to make $300 billion because they could if all the sanctions weren't there. And again, like, this is where everyone's playing their game. People are trying to harpoon it. And you'll like this, David, because I know your fervor and support for Israel. The day before this, deal was signed, like, Israel hit Beirut, and Trump, like, he snapped on Bibi, man. He was like, what the F is wrong with you? And then he even came out and he was like, they chilled out, because listen, as much as people try and say that, like, Israel controls the United States, I've said this, Hotep Jesus said this, anyone that reads, America controls Israel, okay? Like, they still do their own thing. But if we say, listen, here, MFers, this is what you're not going to do, they ain't going to do it, because they rely on our capacity to buy all of their weaponry and give them cash. And that's
weaponry, defense, consumerism, religious freedom, like, and safety.
My big thing with Israel is, and this makes me unpopular in certain conservative circles even, but I'm like, listen, biblically, religiously, as a Christian, I believe Israel has a right to exist. And they should. Separately from that, though, all you got to do is crack open the Old Testament, and there were some times where the Israelites got down to some bad stuff. They were making golden calves and worshiping Baal. They had queens doing human sacrifices on the tops of mountains. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be there. They should be there. They're allowed to be there. But every once in a while, you can say, hey, this leader might not be doing the best thing for your people. This leader might not be doing the best thing for your relations across the globe with other nations. And you should be allowed to you can do both things. That's the problem, is there's no nuance. And even on the right, we have this
we'll
problem
check
where,
back on that in 7 days and see
what this I'm just saying. Even on the
Or-
right, we have this problem. I dealt with that up at the convention. Even some people
Listen, man, I love Israel. I love the Jewish people. They're strong.
Speaking of
great
trillions,
people.
let's talk about a guy who
God.
became a trillionaire. And I don't know.
You
I
two
think this is
panic so
wild.
quickly
I
with
think
that.
it's
That's
awesome.
beautiful.
Like, I think this is awesome. I mean, maybe I grew up and, people are like, oh, you're so motivated and positive. I mean, we should have things to look up to, whether it's, space travel or, just pushing yourself to do skill building, as somebody pops up this article about Elon Musk. I think it's inspiring. I mean, if one person can do it, then like it's possible for anybody else. My son is talking about wanting to become an astronaut, like young son. And it's like that only happens because other people have done it before. And so it's like now we have the chance to become a trillionaire, a billionaire, a millionaire, whatever it is, by going about things. And I just always like to quote, I'm paraphrasing it, but it was something like, it was when he was a billionaire and people are like, "Oh, well, how does it, you must be nice to be a billionaire." He's like, "I don't feel like a billionaire. I don't have a Scrooge McDuck." You know, I'm just talking now, but it's like he's like, "I don't have money just sitting in my backyard hitting $1 billion." He's like, "I have a company, or I have multiple companies, and when people believe in that company, somebody else calls it worth, something. People put a value on it, and then that makes that person who pays the taxes. And we can get into how much Elon paid in taxes in the last couple of years. Like, it is unheard of. So I don't know. I don't know why I find myself defending Elon Musk, because apparently everyone hates him.
Yeah,
Moving in this right direction. But yeah, tell us about this article.
Yeah, I'll scroll it down for David to read. He's a good reader.
Yeah, much better than mine.
I learned to read,
man. Since
all right. June 12th, 2026. On Friday, Forbes declared Elon Musk as the world's first trillionaire as SpaceX stock began trading on the NASDAQ at $150 per share, giving the company nearly $2 trillion market cap. Forbes estimates that the IPO has boosted Musk's fortune to $1.1 trillion as of Friday morning. His net worth rose by $188 billion by 188 billion to an estimated 982 billion on Thursday evening, when the SpaceX priced the IPO at 135 per share. Looking at Musk's wealth portfolio, the SpaceX chairman, CEO, and chief technical officer owns 4.8 billion shares of SpaceX, worth 715 billion, and has another 350 million stock options worth $50 billion, giving him a 38% stake in the company. Learn more about the breakdown of Musk's. I don't need to read that part. Yeah,
I like the idea that like people, it's not even just Elon Musk. People, I think there's something like a handful of employees at SpaceX that have been there for thick and thin and all this stuff like that. Something like individual, I'm getting this from Patrick Bet David show last week, is like they just became individually worth like 240 million just by SpaceX going public on an IPO, initial public offering. That goes public. First, you get investors can go after the IPO and invest it. And then if then you have three of us, probably you people listening here, we're called retail investors. So you can only go after a certain fact, after a certain level. And a lot of people don't even jump on right away. You kind of wait a month, 90 days, 6 months. But yeah, it's I think it's wild, and I think it's really awesome that it's pushing the limits. I think I've talked about we're either going to go up into the sky or down below in the water, but we have all the land covered now. So all the history that, the three of us and people in the chat have been learning about, we've been conquering Earth over however many years. Now we have nowhere to go but up or down.
Yeah. And so a couple of things that I think are significant. We've become so bifurcated as a society in the United States, especially, that there are quite literally people that are calling for basically Elon Musk to be murdered, right? Saying like trillionaires should never exist, that it is actually ethically immoral for any one individual to have $1 trillion. And that is coming from the Marxists, the violent leftists, the ones that advocate for things like, guillotines for the rich and eat the rich, the people that are, Luigi Mangione fans, right? These folks, they are so upset. But the thing that's crazy is that the amount of humanity, the actual individuals that have positively been helped by Elon Musk directly and indirectly is insane. The amount of people that have been lifted out of poverty because of the technology that Elon Musk's companies have been able to create is insane. The fact that he's able to get internet connection all over the world, right? And all of the other things that he's done prior to that, all of the opportunities for people to have jobs in these factories all across the entire world from all of Elon Musk's different ventures is insane. And not to mention all of the people making money on X that were monetized in other nations, right? So, I mean, people were literally generating steady revenue from X being monetized in third world crap hole countries, like legitimately. So it's
Think
just
about
it's
how
so
many
wild,
millionaires
man.
got made just from this stock trade.
Right? And that's
The
one
people
thing
like
that
Drew
I
was
want
talking
to.
about, the people that bought in early. Like, even just in the last week, he's created another batch of
And
millionaires.
And
Yeah, there
when
you
I
have it
talk
right
about
there
that,
on the screen,
that
man.
is not C-level suite. That is not all these things. It could have been an HR manager. It could be anybody. And they went from basically zero to now being worth $240 million. Like, that's just unheard of and amazing. And then money is amoral. You can take money and give it to somebody and they'll do awesome things with it based on their values, their skills, their wisdom, how they grew up, or they can put it up their nose like a certain ex-president son. The point is, like, it can go anywhere.
Allegedly.
And allegedly
Yeah,
found in
just
the
I
White
mean,
House.
just take a look.
Yeah.
All right. So when SpaceX was announced, right, the original IPO was $135, right, and right now, as trading closed today, it closed at $192.50. Now, obviously, not financial advice. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm just super bullish on Elon Musk. That's what I am. And I mean, look at the total market cap right now, $2.52 trillion. That's just,
Mhm.
I mean, listen, man. I think that space exploration, all these things that are going to advance the cause of humanity, I'm not so blind to pretend that there's not other malevolent forces. I'm still like a little bit like look at Elon with some of his beliefs of like wanting to do like the robot transhumanism type of thing, right? That type of stuff still creeps me out. It's not like I trust Elon to be some like great moral righteous character. I'm just saying that from a pure dollars capitalist perspective, the amount of wealth that he has generated and the technology that his companies have created have made the world better by every literal measure that you can put out there. And so, that's what my whole point is that ultimately Elon Musk's wealth, people that are envious or jealous or just hate, have Elon derangement syndrome. Who
They
cares?
hate us because they
Because
ain't
they ain't
us.
us. Yeah, I just think it's great to see.
I
such,
have something
some
funny to close
recognition.
this out with.
Yeah,
Close it out, David.
All
And then
right.
let's jump.
So this makes Elon Musk wealthier than all of the fictional characters that have been considered to be the wealthiest throughout cinema and film. Scrooge McDuck was only worth $65 billion.
that's it.
T'Challa was only worth $90 billion. Aquaman, because of being the king of Atlantis, was about 900 billion, and Smaug the dragon from The Hobbit was
Smaug.
$54.1 billion.
How much
And
was
Bruce Wayne
King
Bruce Wayne was
Solomon
only
worth?
31.3. Listen, these are fictional characters. Don't come at me with your historical facts.
I'm just
All right.
curious because I know that King Solomon is super wealthy too.
And we could talk, yeah, and I would love to talk about that topic. Yeah, David and I, let's do a Sunday show about that. And then keep in mind, like, there
Yeah.
are other people that are worth trillions, but that's like oil families, and it's like you can't just take one person. And so now this is one person that's worth that much, and it's got to be wild. And I don't know. I remember the quote that Marcus Aurelius that said a few more times. He paid somebody a lot of money to walk around with him and say, "You are just a man." And that goes back to values. And let's tie that into our guest. We got Brennan Skip. Tell us about you. I know you got some values and things that you've been standing up for a long time, and we've been connected. Tell us who you are and what you're about.
Sure thing. I am U.S. Air Force active duty. My full name is Brennan Skilpert. I go by Skip. It's short for our last name. And I just have to say up front, my views expressed today are my own. They do not represent the Air Force or the government in any way. So I said no to the COVID shot back in 2021 after the unlawful mandate. I initially tried for a medical exemption, and they said, it's a brand new product. We have no data. Refused all medical exemptions, unless you had a specific allergy to one of the ingredients. So I tried for a religious accommodation. That was ultimately denied. I joined the Doster versus Kendall lawsuit against the Air Force in April of 2022. And it was only that injunction that was granted in that case that stopped me from getting my first LOR. During that time, when my boss told me the religious accommodation packages aren't going to be accepted, they're not going to be approved, I had several times applied for non-voluntary separation. That package ended up being denied as well because they said, we don't have enough pilots in your career field and we can't let you leave. Funny thing is, during that entire time, they weren't letting me fly. I've not flown in 5 years now, as it'll be 5 years, July 1st. So we're coming up on that. Fast forward a few months, then my commander said, well, the injunction happened. We can't mandate the COVID shot against you anymore. So let's get you back in the cockpit. But I got to know, are there any other shots that you're changing your mind about now? And I was honest. I said, well, I've done a lot of study on various shots and the flu shot. And my wife and I prayed and fasted about this for months. We are strongly convicted we can't take the flu shot, and I'll be sending you a religious accommodation. He said, all right, that's it. I supported you for COVID. I'm not going to support you for this one. I can't let you fly. That one, after submission, did not get denied for 10 months. So the flu season was already over for 23 at that point. And when I got the denial, my new commander said, hey, I'm not giving you an order to get the flu shot because there's no flu product right now. And it's a closed requirement. So they didn't order me at that time. That was October of 23. In December of 23, new year, new shot, new requirement. My religious beliefs had further changed. And I had also done a antibody titers test and showed that I must have had a subclinical infection of the flu sometime that November. So I presented that to my commander. I presented that to medical. Backing up just a few years, I had had a severe adverse reaction to the flu shot that put me, it was the sickest I'd ever been. I was about to go to the emergency room because I was having trouble moving. I didn't get out of bed for 3 days. No joke. The only time I got out of bed was to go to the bathroom, and that was it. Missed about 5 or 6 days of work from the shot, not the flu. I've never, ever had the flu like that. Medical said, nope, we can't grant you an exemption unless you've had an anaphylactic reaction. This was on the phone. And I said, hold on, ma'am. You're saying you'd rather almost lose a service member than grant an exemption that I've proven an adverse reaction to that doesn't stop transmission or contraction of the flu. Yes. So options exhausted, I submitted another religious accommodation in 23. My boss ignored it, flat out ignored it, gave me a letter of reprimand. I submitted IG, MEO, congressional inquiry complaints. All of those came back denied or not actioned. And in the spring of 24, they voted to discharge me. The discharge board voted to discharge me honorably somehow for failing to disobey a lawful order based solely on that unlawful LOR. Fast forward to spring of 25, we're waiting on the appeal of that board. It's at the Secretary of the Air Force's level now. And a mid-level general took away my pay suddenly with 2.5 business days notice and said, all right, outprocess the Air Force, get out. I'm going to stop paying you. So it was by God's grace and the generosity of tons of friends, strangers, and people across the country that we made it for 3 months. And Jim Phelps of the Gateway Pundit, thank you, Jim, you are a lifesaver, wrote an article on our story, and that somehow made it to the Secretary of the Air Force's office. Shortly after that, my pay was immediately turned back on. I was told to go back to work. I was off involuntary leave status. And but for some reason, they cut my flight pay and several of my allowances with that, which was strange because it seemed like there was every indication that I was being retained, not kicked out. So why are you making it harder for me to be retained? Long story short, the BCMR just ruled on my case after I got an IG which is the Inspector General of the Air Force, and also the Review Board's agency director of the Air Force to substantiate my complaint against that LOR. And the BCMR reached out to me. I didn't reach out to them. And they said, hey, we saw that your case was substantiated, your complaint's valid, and you were treated unlawfully. Can you submit a package to us, please? So I did. In March of this year, they nearly fully restored my career with back pay, got me back on flying status, and I start flying. I start flight class again in July. Only thing they're missing is retroactive promotion.
Yeah, that is a lot. To give some people a little bit more context, let's watch the Duty to Disobey trailer.
Roll
it. Which I think you've had a hand in as well as myself.
Yes, you have.
Let's see it.
I had a battalion commander come to me and she said, "Dear God, we're killing our own soldiers."
We gathered today to honor the incredible service members.
We owe you our thanks. We owe you our respect. We owe you our freedom.
Just as we have gathered before to remember those who served, those who fought, and those who gave their last full measure of devotion for our country.
According to the Associated Press, the Pentagon is going to require vaccines for all service members.
I'm asking the Defense Department to look into how and when they will add COVID-19 to the list of vaccinations our armed forces must get.
The military was ordering service members to take a shot that they could not lawfully order them to take.
Are you choosing to be non-compliant?
Get on the floor! Get on the floor!
Leaders did everything legal or illegal within their power to coerce and influence their service members to get the shot.
I'll never forget, I received a phone call from a mother whose son was a Marine at 29 Palms, and she told me her son and 9 other Marines were being held in confinement in the brig until they got vaccinated.
If you don't do what they tell you to do, they will ostracize you. They will destroy your life.
Stop resisting or you will get tased!
They threatened me with Leavenworth imprisonment. They banned me from all Army Public Health Center facilities for 413 days.
I counted over 140 days where I was put into isolation.
Once it becomes normalized in the military, it often very quickly finds its way into the civilian population, as we saw with the COVID mandate.
The effects extend well beyond just those in uniform, and the impact is really on the entire nation.
8,000 well-trained men and women were fired.
I lost my income. I lost my ability to feed my family.
I mean, I'm being told you're getting dishonorably discharged.
And if you get dishonorable, you lose everything. You can't get certain jobs as a civilian. It follows you for life.
You cannot mandate an experimental medical product. You cannot mandate that on military members.
In my entire medical career prior to this, I had never seen a young person with a stroke. I had never seen someone have a massive clot without provocation.
We were in great shape. We were doing very well. But then as soon after the vax is when my health went downhill.
When people celebrate all the freedoms that the military gets to grant this country, when the military's freedoms and really the country's freedoms are actually being taken away.
Why was the vaccine mandate unlawful? How come the Secretary of War is telling us that the vaccine mandate was unlawful?
We all know that the previous administration issued unlawful orders on mandatory vaccines on an experimental vaccine, COVID-19. You know it, we know it.
You are taught that you have a duty to disobey unlawful orders.
You know, they postulated that we're going to have back pay for members that were kicked out. They're inviting these warriors back into service.
And that was huge. And I was so happy to hear that. But that does nothing for the institution itself.
What I have understood from people in the military is that it has not been made easy and that it really still needs to be done on an individual basis.
We haven't stopped in 4 years when everybody was ignoring us, and we're not going to stop for another 4, 14, or 40 years.
We're at a critical juncture, and the soul of this nation is at stake.
When we talk about orders that are unlawful, now there is a duty to disobey.
right. And like I mentioned earlier, the film is going to be released on June 30th to the public. I think it's awesome. It's going nationwide. So it's like some documentaries, you get one spot here in California or Austin or film festivals. This is across the country, more than likely a theater that's close to you. The three of us were just talking. We're going to go on June 30th to our local Minneapolis area theater, and we're going to check this out because, yeah, I encourage everybody go on to dutytodisobeyfilm.com, and there's plenty of tickets, and you can also order a DVD as well. But yeah, Skip, what was your experience with Duty to Disobey so far?
I just saw the congressional premiere hosted in the Capitol on the 10th. It was hosted by Senator Ron Johnson. Got to meet him, got to meet Rand Paul, and several others, and it was absolutely fantastic. Many of the people that are in the documentary, and I'm very sad that I didn't get to meet or see you again. I met you in last year, but I was hoping to see you at the premiere release. It was awesome to see so many people that I either had connected with online or knew about, heard about, but actually meet in person. And just the energy, and at some point people were crying at the testimonies, yours specifically, Drew.
That's what I've been hearing. People have been texting me and messaging me and saying, when you said a certain thing, they're like, I teared up, and I'm like, I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, it was.
I can spoil it for you, or I can hold the spoilers if you want.
I'll wait and check it out and bring some tissues if I need to. But yeah,
it's very moving.
Thank you. Yeah, I've done. This was never my thing before it had to be, like you and like many others. And you said that earlier, like if you would have went through it all, you might have become like myself. And you mentioned anaphylaxis. That's what they put down as my condition, even though it was so much more than that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if you knew this, they put it down as I got it from the flu. Not the flu shot, not the COVID-19 shot. They said it was from the flu. And I only knew that because I went to a GI appointment. It was so far off all my neurological and all the other things. They're like, yeah, it says you're allergic to the flu because you got anaphylaxis in May of 2021. And I'm like, that is not correct at all. We need to, she's like, I can't change anything. You need to go to your local provider. And I filmed the video. I might have showed it to you or put it in the chat. And I'm like, I'm about to go into my appointment. They always push for the COVID vaccine and the flu shot every single time when I see that first nurse, that first person, they're like, you ready to get your COVID shot booster? And I'm like, I'm told I'm allergic. What are you talking about? Are you, somebody said, ask them if they're recommending it. I'm like, are you recommending I get it? And can I put that on the And so I had to go through all this stuff. I'm like, you need to change that right now. I got the COVID-19 vaccine and I developed Guillain-Barré syndrome and then put all this stuff. They're like, well, that's not in our drop-down menu. And I'm like, you need to write notes. Like I started getting furious. So yeah, I'm like, anaphylaxis, I wish I had that, it's so, and, but yeah, so people know my story. I went through with it because I thought it was, they told me like it would stop transmission. It would stop the illness from getting to you. And it was ordered. And then later I figured out that it wasn't. It was not integrity commanders that were pushing it on there. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful I connected with you and other people in the 231 and everybody that I met doing these podcasts, going to conventions, going to all this stuff, because I had no other choice. I mentioned this before when they started bringing it down from the 70-year-olds to the 40 to the 13-year-olds. They brought it down to infants at 6 months when I was hospitalized. And I said, I cannot stay still. So I posted my videos and photos of my horrific hospital ones. I was still pretty much a vegetable. And I'm like, I got to share my story. I don't know what I'm allowed to say or if I can be employable again, but it's got to change. And I'm so grateful I met you and other people that said, we're saying no to this and we have to think on it and pray on it. But AK David, what do you think of this?
Yeah, no, I think it's, a noble endeavor, especially when you have you know, for lack of a better term, right? You signed your life away to Uncle Sam for a certain amount of time, and that's what makes, to me, the bigger perspective of this so nefarious is that while you do have a duty to disobey unlawful commands, in general, you are, you know, sworn to uphold the laws and our Constitution more specifically, and to go out and do what you're told to in regards to protecting this country. And so, a lot of service members, they just get shot up with whatever, right? And so that's kind of, I think, the more nefarious side of this is that you're using these service members as guinea pigs. And the thing that I'm most curious about, right, is that obviously you have served through multiple administrations. Um, do you feel that in this current administration that there is a significantly higher level of seriousness about the claims that yourself and Drew and so many others have made? And are you seeing what you would call enough positive steps forward to address in some way, shape, or form those wrongs that were done? And maybe wrongs is too strong of a word, but do you feel that there has been a market change even within the DOD or DOW in this case when it comes to how they handle this issue?
Yes and no. Again, these are my own opinions, but the Secretary of War declaring that it was unlawful was a huge first step. Now that it's publicly stated that it was unlawful, you cannot violate 10 U.S. Code 1107 and 1107 Alpha, which govern the use of EUA products to service members. Since that was violated, why has there not been accountability yet? The biggest piece that all of us in the 231 have been saying is if there is no accountability, this will happen again. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
I think that's fair. And I guess for you, you obviously were fighting for your family, right? For your pride and duty to this country to be able to just go back to being what you were doing, right? Like what you signed up to serve this nation for. Was there, you know, any specific kind of additional things that you were able to turn to, whether organizations that were able to kind of help for others that might be kind of in a similar situation as you were when it came to like basically being forced out and making it financially unfeasible for you to continue your service?
Sure. I had reached out to Walk the Talk Foundation, as well as Feds for Freedom, co-started by CIA whistleblower James Erdman. If you haven't listened to his testimony, I highly recommend it. It is fantastic, and it sheds a light on a lot of the problems of COVID and how the CIA knew with beyond reasonable certainty that it came from a biolab in China, and that information was suppressed, as well as a host of other very alarming things. I reached out to the Beard of Freedom, Mr. Davis Yuntz. He was my lawyer during this time, and he's represented quite a few of my coworkers and friends. Liberty Counsel as well. They did a fantastic job, as well as Syrian Glimstad, who litigated our case. That sadly, on the whole, the Chaplain Corps royally failed us in this whole process. I had chaplains that told me personally, multiple chaplains, that they were pressured from their chain of command not to establish that the member had sincerely held religious beliefs if they were requesting a religious accommodation. That is unlawful. You can't do that. I also had multiple defense counsels, military lawyers, that told me they were threatened by their chains of command. If you adequately defend COVID-19 vax refusers, your career is in jeopardy. That is unlawful.
No, 100%.
And just the fact that you talk to the random
That's like
person,
getting a public
or even,
defender that's hoping to get you, you know, that wants to see you behind bars. That's crap.
Yeah. And that just the average public, my friends, family, they're not talking about it unless I do, you know. And just like you said, it'll happen again if we just move on. A lot of people are like, oh, and this we've been, saying these facts, and then poking holes in all the lies over the last 5, 6 years. And then the people that were so adamant about, trust the science and all this stuff. And then it's like, what about this? What about 6 feet? Now with Tulsi Gabbard, what about, these bioweapon labs? And they're like, well, yeah, that was a thing, but that's over now. No, it's not. It's not. For one, it's not over for people like me that were injured, for people that like you, that, with careers and family and all this stuff. It's not over for so many of us. And then it will come back again if we don't stand up to injustices that have happened already.
If we keep saying yes when we shouldn't, we won't be able to say no when we should.
Right. No, that's powerful. And the other thing too,
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that just want to throw out there, Ruth Lupa, shout out to Ruth. She's been a fan of the show. She says, to you, Skip, I am so grateful for your advocacy, probably to you as well, Drew. But, at the end of the day, right, you said this specifically, and others have said this specifically that we've had on the show, that without accountability, this will happen again. As much as the institution of the U.S. Armed Forces is very important. Like, I am the first guy that historically I go and I break it down and I explain to people why we need actual military, why we need people that will defend our way of life and help our objectives. But I think that the thing that we're making a mistake on is that if we don't restore trust, that institution will fall apart. Because that's what happens when institutions, when you find out that they have deep rot, the hardest thing is to like pull it out and say, we messed up, but this is how we're going to fix it. But if you never do that, you will never be able to establish trust, and the institution fails. And if the institution fails, we got a lot of bigger problems, man, a lot of bigger problems when, right now our recruitment levels are decent based off of what Secretary of War has been saying. I have no reason to believe that that's not true, but that's right now. If going forward, people start saying, hey, man, I serve my country, but they never made this right, that will have more power than anything else. And I just,
and numbers were not good 2-4 years ago.
Yeah,
and especially when the mandate was still active. And you notice, like we talked about earlier, like when something changes and when they're not getting good results, that's when change happens. And they reversed, that for recruiters and everything. And they're like, no, come in. We're not going to make you get that and all that kind of stuff. And it's like that. Okay, that changed. Now, can we talk about all the people that are currently being negatively impacted by that? But no, they want to bring in numbers. And when you affect a family, like, I'm sure, Skip, all like the families that like, we're all going to the military. You can choose your branch, or you can go here, you can go officer, you can go enlisted. But like, our family goes into the military. I know for many people that changed when COVID happened. Yeah.
They will not let their family members join. Historical families that have been a part of the military for generations have said, it stops with me. I'm not letting
generations.
My kids join.
Wars, World War II, World War I, all this, American Revolution, like you can tie this, like we can talk about it later, the 250th. We're a relatively young country, but we got to figure out where we're going to go in a positive direction. And if there's no an acknowledgement, we got a little bit of acknowledgement, but accountability, and then saying that we're not going to do this we're going to put placements in order so this doesn't happen again in a similar kind of way, then it just will again.
Yeah.
David, what are your thoughts? David's a veteran.
I think, I think one of the things we need to, what was that?
I said, thanks for your service as well.
Yeah, you too, brother. I think one of the things we need to look at, maybe on the legislative side of things, with oversight of the military is the incentive systems that we have in place, right? What's rewarded. And the problem is, and I saw this when I was in a little bit, I was a lower enlisted, so I wasn't in like the higher level conversations, but there was this big emphasis on, everybody's trying to get to the next promotion, and so they'll fudge the numbers to look good, right? With how many guys you have at sick call, how many, you have all your munitions accounted for, how many people are home on leave, how many people are on base or whatever. And I think we need to maybe look at that as how we're evaluating, military leadership, because then, yeah, when we end up in a situation like this, then all of a sudden the thing they're paying attention to is who has a unit that's 100% vaccinated and compliant and
Yes.
who doesn't. And like you were saying, we're going to nuke your career, or if you do your job and defend somebody who's, denying or getting or requesting to not get the vaccine, we're going to ruin your career. And I think the incentive structure, the way it's currently set up, and this would be something I think we'd have to deal with legislatively, because that would be um, something Congress and the president and stuff would have to work on, is adjusting those incentive systems so that the next time we do have a situation like this, people can actually have their religious freedoms. Because from what I remember my time in the military, your religious freedom was like the only freedom you still had once you signed your name on the dotted line, right? Like your right to privacy, all this gone. Free speech, no, you shut up and stand in line. The one thing you still had though was on Sunday you could go to you could go see the chaplain and hang out in church for a couple of hours and
Yeah,
not have to
basic
mop floors.
training, deployment,
Yep,
yeah.
all that. So I think that yeah, we need to there needs to be a top down look at the incentive structures and how we're what kind of leadership decisions we're rewarding, and I think that'll fix some of this on that end of it.
Yeah, and I was lower enlisted, and then I was whatever medium, junior leadership, whatever you want to call it. And the trust that the chaplain corps had with the lower enlisted was amazing. Like I try to get my guys to talk and how they're doing on deployment and this and that. They're like, "No, we're good, green to go," all this stuff. And then the chaplain would come in and they go talk in the corner or take a walk or the cigarette, area. And I would they'd come back a different person. They'd be like, "All right, cool, I'm good," and and all this stuff. And it's just like you ruin that kind of connection. Well, for one, with the chaplain corps, but then also with your own docs, your own medical. You put them in a bad spot, and that ruins that trust, and you can't complete the mission and complete the mission safely.
To the credit of most, I would say the majority of the doctors involved, they were lied to as well. However, once we started presenting evidence, this is unlawful, and I'm sure you've covered it on the show, but just again for your audience, the reason it was patently unlawful is only the EUA, a product, was available to the United States. Pfizer even publicly said they weren't going to provide the FDA licensed one, Comirnaty, to the US until all the stores of Pfizer BioNTech were exhausted. There were none available. And so when Terry Aderim made her nefarious memo that said, "Hey, this and that, BioNTech and Comirnaty are interchangeable, use them as such," and the services jumped on that and said, "Look, they're the same, you can mandate it," that was patently unlawful. And that's where the lie started.
Yeah, and that wasn't the end of it. There was also the treatment options. Like if there is an adequate treatment, ivermectin, other things, then there's no reason to rush to this, less than a year mass vaccination production type deal and then mandate it and then all these things. And that's why they went after Joe Rogan with the ivermectin, the horse paste, made him look all sickly. And yeah, just there's so many levels, and I hope the film I'm sure it will kind of go into the different areas. The trailer did an amazing job, and yeah, the trailer was filmed after I did my interview, so there are a lot more stories. Yeah, there are more stories to be shared, mine and then many others, and then I hope it reaches many more people, and because we need more people to speak out that had their career and their families impacted like you and so many others. But then also there's a big push right now that if you've been impacted medically after getting the COVID-19 vaccine, fill out the VAERS report. Like, please. I thought that my doctors would have done that myself. And for one, I was completely paralyzed. I could not.
They're supposed to.
Yeah, that was the idea. And that's what I heard. They're like, "Oh yeah, they took care of it. Don't worry about it." And I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for a call or an email to say that, we got you. We're going to, we saw your data. Guillain-Barré syndrome, it was a known side effect, all this stuff. I was waiting for that. And the call never came. And so finally, after getting with React 19, the organization that I help and support, they're like, fill out your own VAERS report and then let them figure out and, combine them, whatever they got to do. So yeah, I started doing that. There's a big push right now to lead to accountability. So if you're out there and you got an adverse reaction, fill it out yourself. It's actually super easy. I put it off for so much longer because I thought I was going to have to grab all my medical documents and share it. No, just go on the VAERS website. There's a big push right now, and let's get some accountability. And especially right now, while we have a more favorable administration, more favorable departments or areas and people in position, now is the time to get on that, and it could lead to real actual change. Let's get to a couple of our chats, and then Ashley talked about some a little bit happier things and some fighting things, and America's a young country, but let's see if we can keep it going. So AK, do you want to read some of those off?
Yep. So we have Rumble, iPhone. Shout out to Rumble. Yes, we are streaming on Rumble. Make sure that you guys follow and subscribe to us there. Many recorded phone calls, though, roughly that said with Pfizer that unvaccinated service members. This is another comment. So I'm not exactly sure what the rest of their conversation, other than saying
two of the four are typo corrections.
Gotcha. But said unvaccinated service members need to be summarily promoted across the board, even if they never come back to duty, at least one across the board. So listen, at the end of the day, I think that when you have this conversation about what does actual accountability look like, there's multiple aspects. One, I want to see criminal accountability, people that knowingly violated the Constitution that should be criminally charged. I believe in financial accountability, which is members get their back pay. And then also, again, when we talk about promotions, that also comes with not just a financial incentive to it, but it does mean that you are acknowledging that you made a bad choice by forcing these members out. And so ultimately, I think that this has to be part of the conversation. Otherwise, it's not even just conversation. It has to be part of the action. Without the action, our institution is irreparably harmed. And I don't know how we come back from that as a nation over a long enough period of time.
For you. Now that Trump settled the Iran issue for now, potentially, do you see we're maybe going to get some action on the auto pen thing that they were talking about even last year? With all the pardons that happened, because I mean, we still haven't seen anything happen to Fauci, and I get it, he's an old man, but there should still be accountability there for the mess that he put upon the American people.
Yeah.
And so, do you think we're going to deal with the auto pen this year? Maybe now that Iran's chill.
Here's
Senator Rand Paul mentioned
said, right?
that in D.C. when I met him at the conference, actually.
Yeah, and because I'm the Republican National Committee man from Minnesota. And, I have conversations with the RNC, with the White House actually as well, at least from a political perspective. Like, we understand that people, they care about domestic issues. And one of the biggest things that people do care about is accountability going back to COVID.
I would say as far as to anthrax as well.
Yeah.
Same situation. It was pushed as an EUA product originally.
And that just made it easier. So the anthrax, the flu, it just kept getting closer. And then, so now COVID, and then what's the next one in 10 years? And so, yeah, it's just.
Right. And so because of that, I know that what I've heard from, different admin officials is that we understand that these are things that we are working towards. It's kind of like we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And people are getting answered. There's everyone that's like, here are things that we know would significantly help us. And I think that, to be quite candid, the Maha Coalition has been very, very central to making sure that the Trump administration keeps their eye on the prize. And there's been rumors here and there that RFK might bounce, and there's other folks that might leave. But I'm constantly reassured that there will be justice on this issue. And I don't know what the future holds politically, but I also do know that Vice President J.D. Vance also cares about this issue very strongly. So, I think that you can walk and chew gum. And as you guys have already said, Senator Ron Johnson has done an amazing job making sure to get this out
Yeah,
there.
he's been on
And
board since
yeah,
day one from what I've seen, when everyone else has not been. So he was actually in that film, Follow the Silenced, which was React 19 had a big part in that one as well. So yeah, Ron Johnson, from my opinion, seems like one of the good ones that continues to do this. And like you said, Skip, Rand Paul has been awesome in his fight against Fauci and accountability in the bioweapons and labs and all that kind of stuff since day one. Uh, yeah, to your question, I think, David, like I really hope that this is going to become the next focus now that we can kind of settle things with Iran and whatever it is and focus on
100%.
domestic issues.
And
But yeah, let's get a couple more.
I like that you guys are bringing, a bigger light to this issue because, I know people that work in other federal agencies, on the civilian side of things that were dealing with the same mess where, I
Yes.
know of nurses that were at the VA for years that lost their positions or lost their job because they didn't
Tons of
they
first
had a
responders,
religious or
too.
medical exemption. People going through fertility treatments that declined the vaccine that lost their jobs because of it.
Yes.
And yeah, all of that was wildly unlawful and wildly inappropriate, and an overuse of authority by the Biden administration. And yeah, I think that the more of this that we can get out there, the more we can address it both on the military side of things and on the civilian side of things. I think there needs to be a greater accountability across the board for everybody that participated in punishing people for exercising religious and medical rights.
If I may, before we jump to the questions, the thing that I feel should be the very next step is just like there's been the beginnings of accountability, and I should say more appropriately restoration for those initially 8,000, roughly 380,400 service members that were involuntarily discharged, and then roughly 90,000 other service members across the Guard and Reserves also left. The federal civilians need the same. They need attention. All those medical workers, the first responders. I met some of them at the premiere to Duty to Disobey, and they're starting their own networks, but it's a lot harder because they don't fall under the federal military, under the Department of War / Department of Defense, that can, through a very small number of people, direct sweeping changes across the board. They're all at state and local levels. And of those 8,400 service members that were involuntarily discharged, do you three want to guess how many have actually been reinstated?
I'd probably say less than 500.
Drew?
I'd say probably none.
Yeah, I'm going to go with none as well.
Less than
Or if
200.
anything, more people lost their jobs.
Yeah, it's less than 200. That's the last count as of last week.
Yeah. The bureaucracy, the systems, that's just what floors me, is that this could come over within a year pretty much and have this big of effect. And now it's been 5 years and just very little corrective action. And yeah, I mean, left, liberals, Democrats, whoever, they talk about fascism and tyranny and authoritarianism. And it's like, you can't get a more clear version than in 2020 and 2021 from the lockdowns to all these different things. And then the mandates and then the punishments and firing from your jobs. Like, it's a perfect example that nobody talks about anymore.
Yeah.
It's our job to make sure it doesn't go into.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm so glad we're all talking about it. Whether it's impacted you severely, medically, career, family, or friends and family, the people just are in the know, like AK, and that know so much about it from you're diving into politics and news. We cannot stop talking about it, otherwise it will disappear.
Correct.
But yeah, let's grab chats and then.
Yeah, just got a couple more chats from Rumble iPhone.
They're putting in
Accountability
work.
is needed. I know. Accountability is needed, really ought to happen, but that is slow. Summarily promoting the uninjected service members would be instantaneous and help dilute the influence of those who propagated the law breaking, which you're not wrong. And then military loss numbers don't count those who retired and separated, whereas they wouldn't have if not for the mandate.
did mention those.
And that's why I say, like, yeah, you did mention those. And that's why I say again, as someone that understands the significance and importance, like, listen, let's just be completely candid. Like, our ideals are amazing. Like, the idea of having this constitution that says that all men are created equal and that we are enabled by our creator with inalienable rights, like that's an amazing idea. But without a military, that's just an idea. And those that want to stop us for whatever reason, maybe it's ideological, maybe it's just purely resource driven, like without an armed forces, none of it matters. And I've tried to make this so clear to people. This is why I'm so supportive of making sure that veterans get the help and assistance that they need, and why I push in my own way. Like I did so many deep dives and breakdowns into how these institutions are losing all trust from society, and that will have such profound long-term consequences. And here's what I think happens is that there are those that are making strategic decisions about, well, yeah, we're going to eventually get to it, but I think they're not looking at a far long enough timeline and horizon. They're looking at right now, which is important, and there was a lot of work to do with the previous administration of things that they gutted and did wrong. But at the same time, I think that, again, as long as we see that there are actual steps, I think that people have patience, right? I would say of anything, armed forces members, armed service members have patience, but they have to see that there's actual steps being made and steps being pushed forward. And, sometimes I think it takes just swallowing the pill and saying, yeah, we are wrong. Because remember, the Trump administration was in power when this first went into play. And so, having to look back and say, like, yeah, we screwed up, is sometimes very difficult. But I guess that's kind of the last thing I wanted to ask you, Skip, on this topic. And then I kind of want to move on to something that's a little bit fun or funny. But, from your perspective, do you see actionable items on the horizon, or is it just bluster? And if it is just bluster, what things would you recommend so it's no longer just bluster?
Are you talking about the restoration and accountability, those two pieces?
Yeah. Of what you see that's actually actionable that's happening.
So the short term, what I think is the easiest to handle are the restorations of those service members, the roughly in total, the involuntarily discharged, and then those that left voluntarily under coercion, almost 95,000 service members. By the way, which is more than all of the conflicts since Vietnam, including Vietnam combined. That's more total loss of service members than all of those conflicts in or out of the battlefield, just so your viewers are aware. Restore them. That's a lot easier than the accountability piece. The accountability piece, got to start with that auto pen. Crack that case. Get to the bottom of that. And how can you pardon someone for all future crimes that they haven't made or been accused of yet? I don't know. My opinion's only.
Man, I need to get me one of those.
Yeah.
Hey, Kay, can you hook a brother up? You got friends in the White House.
And that's a good point with the people that left, maybe not forced out, but that knowledge, those skills, like for one, you kick out the people, you put people in a position to leave that are standing up to evil actions, bad orders.
Best people.
Yeah, those are the people that you want in command, in, working on missions, working on these things. Those are the type. So then what you are left with is a weak military. And I can't imagine a more open chance for an enemy country to attack than having just weak individuals like that will go along with anything, not question anything, stay in, not, that's not who we are as Americans.
Their inability to see the bigger picture will affect their tactical decision making on a battlefield, where they're only going to be thinking 10 steps in front of them or 5 steps in front of them, when they need to see, the bigger conflict in a battlefield scenario. The best leaders, they're independent thinkers. They push back on things, but they're also able to see the bigger picture and make sure that what they're doing is a piece of that bigger picture and not a detriment to every other thing going on around them. I absolutely agree with that.
Well, let's look into what happened last night. Like I said, America's a newer country compared to others, but we've had quite the history.
She's young, she's fine. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
I know. We're
too late.
We're on our way. We're on our way. We're developing character, and but let's look at how last night went down.
So this is from the White House. President Donald J. Trump attends UFC Freedom 250. These are some screen grabs, which I'm going to play a video later. But I watched this. It was on Paramount Plus, which was kind of lame. And I read that like apparently CBS could have had the rights to it, and some choice was made to not do it. But so if you didn't have Paramount Plus, you weren't able to watch it. But watching it, to me, right, as someone that I'm a Djangoist, all right? I think America is the greatest country that has ever existed in the history of all countries, to the point that part of the reason I don't actually like to watch the UFC is because there's so many non-Americans that win and people like. And I'm serious, dude. I'd like for real, dude. Like when someone from Brazil beats an American, I'm pissed. And I'm just like,
well, how do you know that they're not an American-raised Brazilian?
What do you mean? Because they are fighting under Brazil. It has the Brazil flag in their name, all right? If you fight for America and you're Brazilian, whatever, dude, like whatever. My point is that it was still a great event, and it really brought me great pride as an American. And so there's just one little video that I want to play that I think really encapsulates basically like what I thought was so dope about it. So let me share this here. We'll play this video here. Maybe. Yeah. Nice. Those are so cool, man.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Just look at those. It's like right there,
formation.
Like,
heck yeah.
Dude, but it's right there, South Lawn of the White House. I was offered weeks ago to
AK,
go,
I was going to say, I'm surprised you weren't there.
It just doesn't make sense, man. I'm not a huge whatever. Anyways, point is that super dope event. Just want to go through some of the what your guys' kind of feelings or thoughts were about the entire event. But yeah, I mean, we're either any of the three of you, any guys UFC fight fans or anything
I love
like that?
I love watching a good fight. I will say, AK, I'm still hung up on the fact that you think standing in front of a golden calf statue of our president is interesting, but going to see a UFC fight
not a golden calf
on the lawn of the White House doesn't interest
I had
you
to
at
go
all.
to I had to go there for an official meeting, so I had business. This would just be
I'm not
going
saying
there
it's a
to
golden
like
calf.
dink
I'm saying
around.
it's a mirror of the. I was giving you a hard
We're
time.
picking up what you were putting down.
Yeah, they get what I'm saying. Big picture, guys.
I like it. I'm not big in the UFC, but I like the UFC more than other sports, especially in the last 5, 10, 15 years, how they've gone way into the wrong kind of politics. So yeah, I lean more on UFC. I'm not a big fan, but I think it's absolutely amazing. We need to celebrate this stuff. We need to celebrate the good times and just show what we're all about. We can't hide from it just because of current issues going on. Yeah. Like supposedly even George Washington, they all celebrated Christmas and all this stuff. We can't just stay in the fight constantly. That's not good for our bodies. We got to celebrate the good times too, and kind of take a break for it. So I like this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of UFC because outside of the military, it's one of the few places where men can still be men, right? Like AK is going to cover, like, there's some clips of some people saying some wild stuff. Like, you got that locker room talk, you got that ability to just be a guy, and like you're not being put down or punished because you have aggression inside of you that you need to get out of you every once in a while and put it towards something like your career, or in this case, a fight, right? Like that's essential. We don't have civilization without men who are capable and willing to do violence when necessary to keep it safe. So I like the UFC for what it is in that it's a place where men, even if you go to a gym and just do some amateur training, like some of these guys, their trainers will put on classes for like civilians for fitness and health or whatever, just learning basic fighting. Like, I think that's so good for people.
Yeah, like check this out. So this is obviously the main card title fight, Justin Gaethje. And he got to start off in the oval, man. Like, it was so cool. Like, just walking through the White House for people that haven't been
In
there.
flip-flops.
I think in flip-flops, yeah, because he's going to fight barefoot. But then
that looks like J6 2.0.
I was
it kind of does.
All he needs is the bullhorns.
They were all joined by they called like American heroes. So there was a bunch of Medal of Freedom, Medal of Honor recipients that were walking with them, and then different law enforcement, first responders. It was just overall a super great event. Of course, everything is, again, I said earlier, everything is politicized. So there were a bunch of Democrats that were praying for rain, and there's this really funny, like, they showed like a Doppler radar, and it's like the storm was coming for DC, and then it split like north and south.
Wow.
And then it like reconstituted. So it's almost like some people are like, well, that's because they turned on the weather machine or whatever. But
or people pray.
People pray, man. I believe in prayer too. And so just run through some of the
it worked out for Moses.
It did. The main event, Justin Gaethje beat the brakes to Ilya Topuria. And again, I'm not a UFC guy, so probably murdering his name. But that was a pretty good fight. And my favorite part, though, is at the end, Justin Gaethje, again, it's like some people just don't believe that people have the kind of pride in America. And he was like, I was an underdog, 6-1 underdog. America was underdogs against, the British Empire. And we were able to persevere. And he's like, I prayed and I, asked God to give me the ability to fight my best. And he gave his glory to God. On top of that, there's just another little video that I want to show you guys that to me was probably the most important out of anything, especially as a Christian. But this is Mauricio Rufy, which he's from Brazil, so I won't hold him against that. But he is a brother in Christ, and here's what he said during his post-fight winners interview with.
For everything, Dana White, Hunter, congratulations. Spectacular event. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. And I have a message. In John chapter 3 verse 16 say, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Jesus changed my life. Jesus saved my life. Jesus want to save your life too. Give your life to Jesus. Thank you so much.
Wow.
And to me, like that was the coolest part. And so even though he's Brazilian, and I don't like that he beat an American.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
And not
dope,
only UFC,
okay?
but also the FIFA, the soccer as well. So they've been having that.
Oh yeah, we
USA
smoked Paraguay.
Did we?
Well, it's Paraguay. Come on now. Listen,
a lot of people
from South America,
in the rest of the world
are
coming over to US and like checking this out. And they're, these are people that said like America's evil, they're horrible, they do this, they do that. They're like, America's pretty awesome. Like, people fly the flags. They went to Walmart. They're like, we've only heard, whatever the news or whatever their countries are telling them. They're like, we can see why Americans, love their country for like the really good stuff. And so I've been watching like a ton of videos today about that. Is like, yeah, we're not as bad as the media and everybody paints us out to be. So yeah, we need more things. Trump is a businessman. He's an entertainer. Hopefully things are starting to fall into place. But yeah,
that's one of the benefits to legal immigration is sometimes you need to look at something through someone else's eyes, right? If you've lived here your whole life, you don't actually realize how good you have it unless you do something like join the military or the Peace Corps or something and see how things are on the other side of the world.
True.
And there's one last thing I just want to throw out there just for the lulz real quick. It'll be 10 seconds. But the Josh Hokit, who won the heavyweight fight, had a few words that he wanted to tell the world.
Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America?
I have watched that like too many times at work today that I don't want to admit. I hope my boss never sees this. But oh my god,
oh man, that and his fight, dude. He's a fighter, man. He's a scrapper. Watching those big boys rumble, man, the heavyweights, like they're throwing heavy fists, and he was not touched up at all, and he worked over that Davis dude. And I like that one because that guy, Josh Hokit, like absolute mega, like diehard mega guy. and he's just a troll of trolls. But
And that it just
yeah,
goes back
just
to freedom of
lighthearted.
speech, freedom of religion. We're able to do this stuff, enjoy ourselves, but also, keep up the good fight. And so that's what life's all about. And then you
The
add
difference
family in
between
there
that
too.
and the left is he's not calling for violence on anyone. He's just pointing out something that he believes to be true and letting you decide what you think of it.
All right,
That's how freedom of
David.
speech is supposed to work.
David, where can people find you? What's your final message out for this week?
Absolutely. Guys, we live in the greatest country on earth, bar none. I'm with AK on that. Listen, we're the only civilization in all of human history to have a technological advantage in war and not use it to conquer everybody else. We literally ended 2 world wars and gave people their land back and gave them money to fix it. So when people ask you why America's the greatest, there's an answer for you. You can find me at the Peruvian Gentleman on all my social medias. I'm over there rage baiting leftists and arguing about things and occasionally dropping some Lord of the Rings lore that these guys roll their eyes at. Yeah, just we're gonna be at Drew's premiere later this month. I'm excited for that. Father's Day is coming up. Go love your fathers. That's a biblical command. That's my words of advice for everybody.
Excellent. AK, what about you?
Yep, you can follow me on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Real AK Kamara, where I'm at this point, I'm mostly posting on X and then just like lazily posting my best bangers and then posting them on Facebook and Instagram. But you can also follow me on TikTok. It's been a while since I had posted a video, but I'm kind of getting that itch where I want to start grinding through some more content, and especially with things politically. We've kind of picked our folks in the Republican Party, because that's the biggest thing for me. I'm the national committee man. So it's like, I don't want to make content that is overtly trying to like pick one Republican or the other. So still got a little bit of that to go, but follow me there. And just make sure that you guys, go out and love America unabashedly. Don't let anyone throw shade at your American gear. Yes, I'm again, I wear this polo like every other day. Okay, it's my American 250, and I wear the American flag hat every day because I love this country, greatest country ever created.
Outstanding. Yeah, a couple other chats just to make sure.
You
we
want to
got
see
all
how
these.
American I am?
Yes, let's see how American you are.
Oh no,
this is now in my office.
George Washington, I love it, dude.
Watches over me daily.
Yeah. We just got that Rumble phone. Thank you, gents, for the coverage on the issue. No problem. I'm just happy we can talk about this and share our ideas, because it's been far too long. And then, yeah, in the Oval Office with shorts and your flippy floppies. Skip, who are you, or where can people find you? I know you said you might not have some socials, but what do you want to tell the people?
If you search my name and Gateway Pundit, you'll be able to find some of the articles on my story, but I've given you the short version of it already. 3 things. Go to dutytodisobeyfilm.com, buy your tickets, look for the theater closest to you. You can also pre-order your DVDs there as well. Number 2, pray. This was our nation's first commissioned flag, flown by George Washington on his ragtag group of ships. This is a stylized version. The original flag is a white background with a single pine tree that says "Appeal to Heaven." But prayer still works. So don't give up. God hears you. He says, even before you've asked, I've already answered. And while you're calling, I've already heard. And number 3, we need mandatory constitutional training across anyone who takes the public oath of office, to include military, police, all of our elected officials. That is, if we are supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States, then everyone needs to know what's in it. And we need to hold each other accountable to it.
Excellent. And just like you mentioned, dutytodisobeyfilm.com. The website is very well done. Click buy tickets or the DVD. You can pre-order the DVD. And so like me, I just typed in Minnesota in here, and so you can see the map. Even in Canada, I had Canadians ask me, like, can I go see it in Canada? I'm like, maybe, let's check it out. And there are some
there's a few.
Yep. And so, yeah. So like I said, we're going to go to our local theater here. Please check it out. It's one day. If I'm saying that right, Skip, it's
one day,
30th?
June 30th.
So yeah, check that out, please. It'll make a big impact. So appreciate that. I'm glad we had you on. I am Drew Outstanding. You can find me on X at Drew Outstanding, is where I talk about more of my spicy topics like we talk about here. And then also my a little bit more fun stuff on YouTube, Operation Drew Outstanding. I just got back from Japan. It was a total of 80 people. 80 of us Americans went over there and checked out, military sites and cool rocks, maybe from aliens, maybe not. And I was able to lead, like I used to, 10 veterans. And because I'm in organization and planning and leading and that kind of stuff, I'm just glad I can finally have opportunities to still do that and provide value. So, and still check out some amazing sites. So yeah, I have some more of my videos on Japan. I post some. I'm like, oh, here's a video. I'm gonna make up some history. Here's where the samurai trained in physical therapy and or physical fitness and ran, swam in this moat in their full armor, and then they dropped to the bottom, and then they had to take the armor off and then swim back up and then go down and pick it up. That was made up history, and I hope you enjoyed it. So stuff. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great show, Skip. I will see you again. And
thank you so much. It's my honor.
So, Culture Warriors Unchained. Thank you guys out there. Have a good night.
Culture Warriors Unchained.